Welcome everyone. Hope everyone's doing today, or good afternoon for those of you who are in the afternoon. My name is Will Woodward. I'm an assessment specialist with impact initiatives, currently in the UK, so it's a nice early 6 a.m. for me. We also have presenting Nancy Balfour from Centre for Humanitarian Change. Do you want to say hello, Nancy?
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. I hope your morning and evening is as sunny as mine.
Yes, I hope so as well. We are also scheduled to have Olivia Pearson from UNICEF in South Sudan joining us to present this morning, but she is having some difficulties logging in, but hopefully she'll be able to join us shortly. We're going to start today's session with a brief video introduction from the Executive Director of UNICEF, Henrietta Fore, and then we'll get into our presentation.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I am Henrietta Fore, the Executive Director of UNICEF. I am pleased to join all of you today for this exciting event during the 2021 World Water Week, hosted by the Stockholm International Water Institute. I hope you will have a good series of discussions. UNICEF and the Global WASH Cluster, in partnership with REACH, are spearheading an effort to develop the WASH Severity Classification. It is a set of tools that will help organizations like the partners here today to identify crisis situations where people cannot access clean water and sanitation. Through standardized indicators, we will be able to respond quickly and gain a clearer picture what is causing these conditions. These tools will help us to see threats to water security and sanitation services as they develop, so that we can prevent crises from happening in the first place. They will also provide a platform for WASH partners to come together with a more coordinated approach to our response. This can be a true game changer for the WASH sector, but more importantly, for the people we are aiming to reach. This includes the 1.3 billion people, including 456 million children, who are threatened by the high and extremely high water vulnerability. We welcome all partners to join, and we count on your support and collaboration to contribute to the global rollout. At UNICEF, we look forward to working with the broader WASH community and beyond in this exciting initiative.
So as was mentioned by Executive Director Fore, the WASH Severity Classification, which we're going to be presenting to you today, is about transforming WASH analysis with a resilience-focused approach. So we're going beyond just trying to understand, okay, what the situation is at any given moment in time, but also trying to inform how we can prevent the situation from deteriorating, how we can inform a response ahead of time, and also how we can ensure a more coordinated and coherent response. And we're going to talk you through that this morning in this session. So we'll start off by explaining the WASH severity analysis problem. So what is it exactly that we're trying to solve with this initiative? We'll describe the WSC as a resilient solution to tackling that. We'll give a case study from South Sudan, where we've recently implemented and conducted this on a nationwide scale. We'll have some time to answer any questions that you have. So please do add any questions in the chat on Pathable, and we will make sure we allot some time to respond to those, and then we'll wrap up with some final thoughts, especially with a view to the path ahead with this initiative. To start with, we were wondering if you would be willing to engage us in a quick exercise. So in the chat on Pathable, as we go through in the next few minutes, have a second to think about which single source of data you think is most useful to summarize the WASH conditions in a particular area or region. And we'll come back to what everyone thinks and responds to those in a moment. So please, in the chat on Pathable, if you can think of one single data source that is most useful to summarize the WASH conditions, and write it down. So the WASH analysis, the WASH severity analysis problem, what is this issue we're talking about? Well, over the past decade or so, we've seen data availability in the WASH sector grow significantly, especially with the advent of mobile data collection technologies and an increased emphasis on having data to support programming decisions. However, what we've seen in tandem is there's not really been any emergence of a standardized analysis system to produce results that can easily be fed into decision-making processes and make sense of this rather complex and multi-dimensional situation. As a result, the WASH data that we're increasingly seeing is available does not often translate into evidence-based planning, and decisions are made in more of an ad hoc and case-by-case basis. And as a result of that, we've seen challenges with mobilizing greater funding and identifying the right response at the right time within the WASH sector. And this is not just our musings or thoughts that have led us to these conclusions, but through some inception phase research that Nancy, who's also speaking today, that Nancy conducted at the start of last year. We spoke to some key WASH stakeholders globally, and they gave us the following responses on this issue. So the fact that whenever we have a drought, it's inherently a water emergency, but we always end up talking about food security and not about WASH. The lack of a standard WASH analysis, a standard WASH analysis system is really essential to inform WASH responses and to make sure that early response and appropriate response takes place in high-risk areas. And so in an effort to solve these solutions, the WSC was born, and we'll demonstrate now how we think it's also a resilient solution in line with the main themes running through this event this week. So what exactly is the WASH Severity Classification? Well, it can be described as these three things: a process to build evidence-based technical consensus among key WASH stakeholders. So we bring people together and we try and get everyone to have a common understanding. It's a recognized interagency set of tools and protocols. So it's something that the idea of having something standardized that everyone can trust in, everyone can have faith in. It's a process to support decision makers by ensuring there's a rigorous analysis of WASH conditions, consolidating a wide range of evidence. So we're bringing in lots of different pieces of information together. It's not a data collection tool, and it's not a response monitoring tool. It's something that aims to inform how to respond by classifying the severity of the situation. Now, the WSC is also a holistic approach to WASH analysis. It doesn't just draw on any single one piece of information or any particular sector. So you can see this is a simplified version of our analytical framework. We bring in information from context and vulnerabilities, systems and services. So we're looking at the data relating to service providers, maybe looking at markets, networks, and so on. We have community WASH conditions. So what's happening within the community with regards to access, reliability, quality of WASH conditions. We have household WASH experiences. So what's happening at the household level, socioeconomic changes. How does the experiences of WASH relate to what's happening in the broader socioeconomic sense? Is WASH being affected by livelihoods, for example, or is the WASH conditions affecting livelihoods in the other way? We also have public health outcomes at the top as well. So how does WASH relate to public health outcomes? What are we seeing in terms of things like WASH-related diseases, diarrheal diseases in particular, malnutrition as well, and how is this ultimately relating to mortality too? And so by drawing this holistic picture, we're really building a comprehensive view of WASH and not just focusing on what type of water source people are using, for example, but really going beyond. I can see, for example, that people have added a couple of key WASH data sources in the chat, both of which are right, I can see in there. So we have groundwater, and we also have water exploitation, abstraction v resources. And the point is that with this question that we posed at the start, which single source of data is best to understand the WASH conditions in any one country or any one area, that there is no single source. And that with the WSC, what we're trying to do, and what you can see here with this analytical framework, is we're trying to bring in information and data from various different sources, triangulate it, and really build the picture of the WASH conditions so that we can identify the context, vulnerabilities, and shocks, so what's causing this situation, and also what are the ultimate outcomes as well. Once we've brought in this data from the different areas of the analytical framework, we then look at trying to classify information into one of 5 phases. And this is what gives the WSC its standardized element, because we are looking at different areas in different countries with the same 5 phase descriptions. So an area in phase 5 in one country can be compared with an area in one of these 5 phases in another country. It ranges from no issues in phase 1, which we call none or minimal, to some severe public health situation in phase 5, where we might be seeing elevated mortality or malnutrition and WASH-related diseases as well. The aim of doing this is for decision makers to see which area a phase is in and instantly understand what kind of conditions can be expected there. So you'll be able to look at an area that is a phase 4 or an area that is a phase 5 and say, okay, I know exactly what kind of conditions we can expect there because I know what this WSC severity scale says, and therefore I know what kind of response is appropriate to meet the demands of that area. By doing these things and giving us this information, the WSC is essentially trying to answer these key questions. So how severe is the WASH situation in the place we're looking at? How long has the situation been like this? Are we looking at a chronic situation, or are we looking at something more acute, something more short-term? How many people are in each severity phase, and how widespread does the response that we're coming up with need to be? How is the population distributed? Is it all in one phase, or are we seeing a big split between different populations in different areas? Where is the situation most severe, and for whom? And why are we seeing the severity? And what are the key drivers? And lastly, when and how do we expect the situation to change? So again, that forward-looking element. We're not only focused on the current situation, but we also want to understand how the situation is likely to change so the response can be scaled to meet the needs of the population and country. And by answering those questions, interventions can really be tailored according to the urgency of need, priority areas, and populations of focus, and identifying those underlying factors. In doing this, the WSC is really seeking to improve the WASH response by doing these 3 things. So allowing for better strategic targeting and prioritization so we can allocate resources in a more effective way. Informing more effective, stronger monitoring and early warning systems, so that we can track severity on a regular basis and inform preparedness. Again, if we really want to build resilience, not only the WASH resilience of a particular area, but also the resilience of a response, we need to have that forward-looking view, so we know how things will change, so we can react accordingly. And lastly, for more robust and transparent evidence-based advocacy, to identify and mobilize greater funding for the sector. And going back to the start, we know that the lack of standardized WASH information is a really big challenge in the sector. And by having a more consistent evidence base, we should have a more consistent and resilient funding base as well, to ensure that solutions are longer term, stable, and planning can be over many years and not just responding to the immediate situation. So to summarize, how does this really drive resilience in the sector? Well, we have this consensus-based transparent method, and the transparency part is key as well, because everyone knows where the results come from. It's not just a black box system where we pump out some numbers and everyone agrees to them. No, it's a system that everyone can get on board with, understand, and agree to the results of. It's a holistic approach. So the WSC acknowledges the linkages between WASH and other sectors to ensure that all factors can strengthen resilience over time. The fact that we have those standardized 5 phases, it allows comparisons within and between countries at any given moment and over time as well. And the forecasting and early warning part allows us to explore where and how systems are likely to be overwhelmed and why, so we can trigger early action to strengthen resilience. And lastly, with regard to humanitarian and development, so we're really looking at the nexus as well, of course, and protracted crises, and the focus on all of these things allows us to support short-term needs while also building towards longer-term sustainable and resilience-focused programming. So briefly, before Olivia can talk us through the experiences of South Sudan, how does the WSC work in practice? Well, we bring WASH actors together. So whether remote or in person, we bring all the relevant WASH actors in a country together. We train them in the WSC approach for how to build this, and they build this shared understanding for how to analyze the data. So they learn the WSC protocols, learn the WSC process. They then apply this method in a WASH data, on the WASH data that they have available in country in the analysis workshop. And here you have an example of a worksheet that they go through together, where they are presented with information and they fill out their analysis in line with the WSC process that they've been trained on. The severity of WASH conditions are then classified by consensus. So there's agreement by the key WASH stakeholders in a given place what the severity of the WASH situation is. So they can collectively turn around and say, this is the situation we're seeing, and this is how we think it needs to be responded to. And again, not just focusing on the number of people in a given phase, but also understanding why. So we can look at the consequences, we can look at the causes as well as the consequences, and also looking out to the future, understanding what the key variables are and the key domains are that are likely to cause a change in the situation moving forwards. And once we've done all of this analysis, we write the results up, produce information products that can be shared with key stakeholders. So following that, I will now pass to Olivia, who can talk you through and give you a more tangible sense of what this means in reality and the benefits that there can be for a WASH sector in a given country with a case study example of South Sudan. So I'll hand over to you now, Olivia.
Thank you very much, Will, and good morning, everyone. My name is Olivia Pearson. I'm the Water, Sanitation and Hygiene Cluster Information Management Specialist here in South Sudan, and happily to be taking you through how we've actually utilized this process in South Sudan itself. So for those of you who are not familiar, South Sudan is a protracted and very complex crisis, and historically we have been using data and triggers from other sectors, for example, food security, nutrition, or health, that already have these forms of methodology and these forms of classification scales in place in order to trigger some kind of response. So the WASH response has traditionally been following behind other responses in terms of triggering the humanitarian response, the emergency response. So for us in country, we began the exercise at the start of May, and following with the training and the analysis, following through to the end of May and June with results write-up, and sorry, the review of results and the results write-up. A little geographical background for the country. The entire country was covered in this exercise. We have 10 states, and then under those 10 states, 78 counties, and each and every one of the counties was analyzed, which was fantastic for us because the needs are widespread across the entire country. Next slide, please, Will. So we brought together the WASH actors at a state level. As I mentioned, there's 10 states. So in each state capital, all the team members sat together, and they were supported by people from the global WASH, from the WASH Severity Classification tool at an international level. And importantly for us, they were able to sit together and discuss all these different data sources that we utilized. So of course we used WASH data sources, but we also looked at food security, nutrition, we looked at access to markets, we looked at displacement, and we looked at health-related data. Next slide, Will. Sorry, I should have added briefly. So also the participants in our exercise came from a wide variety of areas. They came from, of course, national NGOs, international NGOs, UN, but also importantly, government participants took part. So we had a broad variety of people engaged, which already meant from the get-go that we had a large amount of people with buy-in and heavy interest in the actual process and the outcomes from the process. So just to take you through few of the key impacts we've seen, and we anticipate to see more in the future, starting off with the ability for both humanitarian actors, that the actors that work with the emergency needs in the country, so looking at areas in likely phase 5 or even phase 4, as well as developmental programming partners in the country, able to identify for both of us the key hotspots. And by key hotspots, I mean areas where there are really the burning needs, the needs that we really need to address to either prevent the situation from rapidly deteriorating, as Will mentioned, or keep the situation stable so that we are able to reach those most in need. A key point to note why this is vital for us in South Sudan is because due to the complex nature of the situation, traditionally we've only really been able to use analytical frameworks that look at the humanitarian needs. So the bulk of the response planning has been based around humanitarian needs, and development partners in the country, which also have a lot of important work to do, they don't really have a system in place, a tool in place that encompasses all the needs, so they can also use this tool in order to gain a better understanding of where they should be working, which was a vital gap that was filled very neatly by this tool. Secondly, because it is a tool that, while it does focus on WASH, it pulls in all the intersectoral needs, and it pulls in all the different intersectoral challenges and risks that the country is seeing. To explain why this is so important in South Sudan, we are currently seeing the largest food insecurity since independence in 2011. We are also going again into quite heavy flooding, which will lead to the displacement of a large number of people, anticipated probably over 1 million people, as well as seeing an increase in economic instability and a resurgence in insecurity despite the peace agreements being in place. So when we're looking at WASH programming and how to address WASH programs in the country, we really cannot only look at how the WASH situation is, but we need to pull in the other sectors. And as well, by doing this, we can show the other sectors how our WASH programming, or lack thereof, will be impacting their sectors, for example, in nutrition, with an increased problem in malnutrition. Finally, this tool has been very important for us and will continue to be very important for us in terms of donor advocacy. And I can say this in two ways. It will help us as a humanitarian partner to address the decreasing funds that we've seen in the country. To give you an example of how it has decreased over the past 10 years, starting from 2014, the WASH humanitarian partners got 116 million for our programming response, compared to last year where we got 48.4 million. So it shows a steady decline in available funding in the country, despite the needs either plateauing or increasing, for example, through flooding or an increasing conflict. But also importantly, it allows donors who may have specific funding that they need to be directing towards specific areas or specific targets, say it's sanitation, say it's hygiene, or perhaps they are developmental funders and they don't have a tool that they can use to be able to target where they want to be working for developmental work. It also allows them to have a look and really have faith in something that has buy-in, that has a rigorous methodology from the very start. And we in country, we've seen a great level of interest, both from WASH as well as the broader donor community, and also at a regional level. And we're very happy with that. So thank you. I'm very happy to answer any questions at the end, but passing back over to you now, Will.
Thanks, Olivia. We'll go straight to Nancy if there's any additional questions to answer in the Q&A before closing up. You're muted, Nancy, if you're...
Thanks, everyone. I have been answering some questions in the Q&A chat, but please keep them coming and I can answer a few more now. I really wanted to just close with a sort of plea from myself as a WASH professional who's worked in both development and humanitarian WASH for a long time, to really support an initiative like this. If we think about what we've been basing a lot of our decision making on in the past, it's really been to do with either prioritization is done by donors in humanitarian crisis based on food security indicators or on nutrition indicators, because those are the analyses that people are familiar with. WASH has really never had a comprehensive analysis which can show the most severe areas, can highlight which communities, which populations are most at risk. And particularly, as Will said, that we have a component in this which also kind of forecasts whether it's going to get better or get worse. So this does help us with decision making. I think it also gives us much stronger analysis of the areas that are chronically vulnerable and are chronically water, sanitation and hygiene stressed. And it's really the only tool that I know of that looks at all of those together, water, sanitation and hygiene. So we're really excited about what we can do with it, but we also really need to get more people trained up. We want to have a hub of WASH severity analysis analysts at regional levels so that countries and areas can do this analysis on their own. So if anybody's interested in becoming an analyst for us for the WASH severity classification, please be in touch with us. We will be running regional trainings in the future to try and create these hubs. But thank you very much for your attention today, and please feel free to contact us individually if there's any more urgent questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. And we'll continue to respond to any questions. We have an email that you can contact us on here.